I welcome Mr James Mulholland to the lectern as our guest speaker for this evening. James is a long-time parishioner here at Holy Trinity, and his family has 4 generations of military service. Thank you, James, for being our speaker this evening.
Thank you, Vicar. To all young people here tonight, especially those members of the 4th Williamstown Sea Scouts troop and of the contingent from HMAS Voyager, to all serving service personnel and veterans and their loved ones, to the widows and families of those who died in action or since. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I dedicate this speech tonight to all those who have offered themselves to defend our freedom and their families and loved ones. This evening, I do not intend to talk about military history, nor about the gore and glory of war. Rather, I want to talk about Lawrence Binyon, the author of the poem For the Fallen. Binyon was born in 1869 and was thus too old for service in 1914. He had read classics at Oxford and had won the Newdigate Prize for Poetry in 1891. In 1893, he was employed by the British Museum and stayed there till his retirement in 1933. During the war, he served as a volunteer, nursing the wounded, first in France, later in England, and was no doubt horrified by what he saw. His poem For the Fallen was published in the Times, actually, on the 21st of September 1914, about 5 weeks after the well-known defeat at Mons and the resulting withdrawal. The poem has 7 verses, but we only usually hear now of 1, but we used to hear 2. The third verse, which is the one we used to hear, its first line begins, they went to the battle, went with songs to the battle. And this begs the question, why did they go? You know, there are many reasons. Firstly, for the chance of adventure and for probably travel to other countries. And in the Second World War, of course, the big cause was that for people who'd been unemployed for a very long time as a result of the Great Depression, the chance of a job which provided clothing, food and accommodation was pretty good. There are, of course, many other reasons why they joined, but that's enough for the moment. In time, though, I think most realised that the battle was about freedom. Freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom from want, freedom of association, freedom of religion, freedom of movement, and many more. One of the better expressions of what freedom is came from something written on the desk of Adlai Stevenson just before his death. It was found there after he died. And it said, freedom allows us to do whatever we want to do, provided it doesn't infringe the similar rights of others. There's also a personal side to freedom, whereby our tolerance, our forbearance, our forgiveness, and indeed generosity, we contribute to the general sense of freedom for our community, our country, and the wider world. There is so much more that could be said about freedom, but tonight does not allow time for that. We should all be familiar with the fourth verse, middle verse of the seven, for the poem For the Fallen, which begins, "They shall grow not old." I think that line would be familiar to everybody here. It is recited in remembrance services around the world, in countries where English is spoken. And when we talk of them, they are still young men we knew or were told about. My father, for example, regaled us with stories about his elder brother who was killed in France on the 31st of May 1918. But he was forever young. Of course, there's no stories about him after he died. So everything was about his youth and his service. Finally, we come to the last line of the fourth verse, which says, "We will remember them." And that begets the question, what do we mean? We must remember their sacrifice, and we should also remember that they fought for freedom. In remembering them with honour and gratitude, we must also take on their struggle to maintain the freedom that they bequeath to us. We need to be strong to protect the freedoms we have, and like them, be prepared at times to make sacrifices to defend our freedom. Pericles, who was a great ancient Greek general and politician, talking of the ancient Greek heroes, said this: "Take these men for your example. Like them, know that prosperity can be only for the free, and that freedom is the sole possession of those alone who have the courage to defend it. Go forth into the world with courage, as all soldiers have, and in the name of Christ, assert your freedom, lest we forget."